Good evening. Our top stories tonight. Joe Mixon has been cleared of his aggravated menacing charge. We are not going to hear a follow of that currently, but that does not mean Joe Mixon is out of the woods. He still could be suspended by the NFL for conduct detrimental. We also have rumors that T. Higgins could be traded if they don't reach a deal this offseason, according to Duvie Kleinman. However, if you read the article, you could very easily take the same quotes and get the story that T. Higgins, that would be ridiculous if they traded him. So lots of stories like that we're going to be facing this offseason. Lots of clickbait, lots of lies, lots of things that are designed to just get your attention, and they're not true. Something we know is true is that Derek Carr has been granted permission to interview with teams that have met the Raiders' asking price. So Derek Carr could be on his way out from the Raiders sooner rather than later. And finally, we've got a preview of the Chicago Bears offseason. What is going to happen with the 101? What they can do to build around their quarterback, whoever it may be. All that and much, much more on Player Profiler Today. But before we get to our preview on the Chicago Bears, we've got some news. Joe Mixon, as we said, he has been cleared of his charges for aggravated menacing. They've been dropped by the prosecutor. So sorry, I shouldn't have said cleared, dropped. They've been dropped by the prosecutor. He is no longer being charged for now. Still could be suspended. And if he is suspended, I don't know how that will play into the void of Joe Mixon's contract. If he gets suspended by the league for conduct detrimental, could he forfeit his guarantees in his contract? I don't know, but we've talked about Joe Mixon moving on from the Bengals already. Samaje Perine, he's a free agent, but so many backfields could be changing. Joe Mixon will keep you updated on that, but for now, there is no story until we hear an update on if the NFL will suspend him or if they'll look the other way, or if that'll be a fine. But his teammate, Joe Mixon's teammate with the Cincinnati Bengals, T. Higgins, we get all sorts of rumors today, but they're not really rumors. Duvie Kleinman just kind of irresponsible the way that this went down. It was reported that T. Higgins could be traded if he doesn't receive a mega contract extension this offseason. And the if was just doing so much heavy lifting, because if you read the article is about what cap moves the Bengals could make throughout the offseason. So it was just all hypotheticals from one reporter. This reporter was not reporting anything, just saying, hey, these are the moves that can be made. And we've talked about this already, that T. Higgins could be, but there is no indication that he will be just yet. So when you get stories like that, you should always double check. When you see a headline reported by a journalist, you should make sure to check what the story actually was. When you read the story, then, okay, well, that headline was a little bit misleading, wasn't it? And that's the case with this T. Higgins story. As of now, there is no indication that T. Higgins will be on the move. The Cincinnati Bengals have done plenty to save up cap space because they've got to extend Joe Burrow. They've got to extend T. Higgins. And next offseason, they'll have to extend Jamar Chase. I think they're going to get them all done, though. I think Joe Burrow, much like the Philadelphia Eagles, are able to secure A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, and they'll end up securing Jalen Hurts. I think the Bengals are going to do the same for Joe Burrow, so I wouldn't worry too much. If you're a Patriots fan, though, you should be worried about DeAndre Hopkins. He is not coming to you. That would be absolutely shocking per reports, because of the relationship between Bill O'Brien and DeAndre Hopkins, just how frigid and frosty those two were, just did not get along. Apparently, Bill O'Brien took some shots at DeAndre Hopkins for having his babies and his baby mamas around the facility. And so, yeah, just not, like we talked about with Derek Carr and Josh McDaniels, just two personalities that could not work together. And unlike McDaniels versus Carr, I don't think anyone's in the wrong. Whereas with Bill O'Brien and DeAndre Hopkins, Bill O'Brien was absolutely in the wrong, and so they're not going to work together. But as for Derek Carr balled out last night in the Pro Bowl precision passing contest. I know it's just a contest, but still, Derek Carr was on a heater, more of a heater than he's ever been on in his time in Las Vegas, and admits that's probably why they're trading him. Looked like he was having a lot of fun out there. Derek Carr was enjoying himself, throwing to Pete, the Pro Bowl robot, which was developed by Envelope Sports, the new quarterback training partner. Can speed up, throttle down, and run precise routes without fatigue. Apparently, we're going to have robots, AI, running routes for these quarterbacks now. But anyways, for Derek Carr, he's got a no trade clause. Derek Carr has a no trade clause, and so he could, if he wanted to, force the issue and say, no, Raiders, you have to release me. But doesn't sound like he wants to do that. It sounds like Derek Carr wants to be traded, because it sounds a whole lot better getting traded, even if you get traded for pennies. It sounds a whole lot better getting traded rather than straight up release. But Derek Carr gets to pick where he's traded to anyway. So it all works out. We know that Derek Carr was blocked from seeking a trade himself, but now we're hearing that the Raiders are allowing Derek Carr to talk to teams that are interested, teams that have met the asking price for Derek Carr. So we do have confirmation that teams are willing to trade for Derek Carr, and I expect this to happen. If it hasn't happened by the time this show airs, by the time this show ends, I expect it to happen to between 11 p.m. and 9 a.m. Eastern tonight to tomorrow. Derek Carr will be traded shortly. He will be traded before that Pro Bowl game on Sunday, because the Raiders will not take that risk of being stuck with Derek Carr if he is injured. $40.4 million would be triggered, guaranteed instantly as soon as Derek Carr was injured. Where will he go, though? There's a chance that he goes to the Saints. The Saints have confirmed to be interested in Derek Carr. Dennis Allen, his former head coach. We know Dennis Allen, who drafted Derek Carr in 2014, only got to spend a year together. He and the Saints are interested in Derek Carr. And it would make sense because the Saints think they're still there. The Saints think they can still compete for a Super Bowl. They went all in last year with the trade up for Trevor Penning, and now they get the first round pick back. So in their minds, hey, we moved up and we got our left tackle of the future, and we only had to move back a couple spots. This is great because we got rid of Sean Payton. It's not great, but I think we might see Derek Carr in a Saints uniform. We'll keep you updated as that churns. Make sure you check out the @RotoUnderworld account. Make sure you check out the @Profiler_NFL account, both on Twitter or on Instagram. You can check out the @RotoUnderworld account for all of the news, all of the updates. And we've got updates on Tom Brady. Tom Brady, before he retired, he actually did have three options outside of the returning to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because we know that the Buccaneers left the offer open for Tom Brady to return. But Tom Brady didn't return. Tom Brady instead retires. But the other options, the four options for Tom Brady, were the Buccaneers, as we know, the Las Vegas Raiders, as we had been reporting for a long time, the San Francisco 49ers. So that was true that was heating up. And it was true. Mike Silver was wrong that the San Francisco 49ers had committed to Brock Purdy even before the injury. Before Tom Brady retired, before the Brock Purdy injury, Tom Brady was still on the radar for the San Francisco 49ers. Player Profiler was right. Mike Silver was wrong. So those are three options for Tom Brady. 49ers were one of them. And the fourth was the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins actually were still calling Tom Brady. Owner Stephen Ross just can't quit with Tom Brady, just flirting up a storm. Couldn't stop it. Tom Brady doesn't end up going to the Miami Dolphins or the Raiders or the 49ers, but he could have had he not retired. Rounding out the news around the NFL, we've got Sean Payton, who signed his 5-year deal. Sean Payton tied to the Broncos through 2027. Russell Wilson tied with the Broncos through 2028. And we've got the Houston Texans. They're still looking for an offensive coordinator. They are in no hurry, while the Ravens are. The Ravens have announced finalists for their offensive coordinator position. Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator of the Georgia Bulldogs. Dave Canales, the Seahawks QB coach. And third of all, we've got Justin Outen, the offensive coordinator of the Denver Broncos. And people will say, well, the Broncos offensive coordinator, he was terrible. Remember what happened with the Broncos offense after they fired Nathaniel Hackett and Justin Outen was still there. Just think about that. It was a lot better. It was more with Nathaniel Hackett being terrible than Justin Outen. So anyways, these are the three candidates for the Ravens offensive coordinator. The Raiders have hired Scott Turner, the former offensive coordinator of the Washington Commanders, former quarterback coach of the Carolina Panthers. So with Scott Turner going to the Raiders to play some sort of passing game role, Taylor Heinicke is going to the Raiders. We can tell you that for sure. Maybe they draft someone. Maybe this is a sign that the Raiders are going to trade up in the draft, get their quarterback of the future with Taylor Heinicke starting right away. I don't know. It's going to be a fun offseason. One that includes a new defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. Steve Wilks will be interviewing with the 49ers on Monday. It seems as though that they're going to do a full search, but it sounded like Steve Wilks might be the favorite for the 49ers, who there were players in Carolina that were disappointed Wilks didn't get the head coaching job. I still think Frank Reich was the right decision, but Steve Wilks, well respected. He's going to get a job somewhere, could be with the 49ers. As for the Broncos are interviewing Brian Flores for their defensive coordinator position, and they're interviewing Sean Desai. Now, both Flores, the linebackers coach for the Steelers, and Desai, the secondary coach for the Seahawks, they are candidates for the Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator position, or at least they were. Sean Desai has pulled out of the running to become the Vikings defensive coordinator. So that leaves Flores in the running to be the Vikings DC, or Ejiro Evero. And it's clear that the Broncos interviewing Brian Flores, interviewing Sean Desai, it's pretty clear that Ejiro Evero is not going to be back. And the fact that Sean Desai has pulled himself out of the Vikings conversation, it's clear that he's probably going to be the DC of the Broncos. So that leaves Ejiro Evero, and that leaves Brian Flores to probably be the defense coordinator of the Vikings, but they're both in the running to become the Cardinals head coach. So we have to wait to see who the Cardinals hire before we know who the Vikings hire. And same with the Colts, because the Colts are interviewing Ejiro Evero too. So what happens if Flores goes to the Cardinals and Ejiro Evero goes to the Colts and the Vikings are left with Mike Pettin? Just risky business here. We'll wait and see what ends up happening. Final notes on the news before we get to the Bears. Tyjae Spears, he is the winner of the Senior Bowl. According to the Podfather himself, he is a combination of Duke Johnson, who had the most rushing yards in Miami Hurricanes history. Duke Johnson, plus Nyheim Hines, who we all know doing those backflips, who is an electric pass catcher for the Colts for all those years before he kind of fell off this year. Tyjae Spears should be drafted between Antonio Gibson and Dameon Pierce. Antonio Gibson, of course, was drafted at the 302. Dameon Pierce was drafted at the 402. So we're going to get pretty decent capital from Tyjae Spears, who was the biggest riser of the Senior Bowl. And this isn't just coming from me. This isn't just coming from the Podfather, just coming from Cody. This is coming from everyone you talk to. Tyjae Spears was the big winner at running back outside of Roschon Johnson, who we know ate up there. But of course, if you clicked on this video, you wanted to see what we had to say about the Chicago Bears. How are they going to handle this offseason? How are they going to rebuild from the 101 back to relevancy, back to the Bears? Well, how do they do that? First and foremost, they trade the 101. There is no shot in the world that the Chicago Bears draft a quarterback at 101. No chance in hell. They're not drafting Bryce Young. They're not drafting Will Levis. They're not drafting CJ Stroud, because all of these quarterbacks are inferior prospects to Justin Fields. Bryce Young, he's small. Bryce Young is like half the size of Justin Fields. CJ Stroud is closer to Jared Goff than he is to Justin Fields, the electric playmaker. And Will Levis, we can just hope and dream that he becomes Justin Fields. Fields is the quarterback. You have a quarterback tied to the Chicago Bears for the next 3 seasons. Justin Fields is the quarterback. So what you do is you trade out of that 101, and there's going to be offers. There are going to be trading up to get Jared Goff type offers, like the Rams trading up to the 101, or the Eagles trading up to the 102 for Carson Wentz, because there are quarterbacks that people want, and it's a competitive year. So the Chicago Bears, they're going to have options. They could trade back from the 101 to the 102. Houston Texans could move up one slot. They get the quarterback that they want. And then we could end up seeing the Bears trade back again from the 102, because we've got the not the Texans. We've got the Colts, who could want to trade up still from the 104 to the 102 to get their quarterback. Or we could see the Panthers try to move up from the 9th overall pick, because at 7, we've got the Raiders. Could the Raiders trade up to get their quarterback of the future if they do indeed go with Taylor Heineke to pair with Josh McDaniels and Scott Turner? Or the Falcons picking at 8, though we think they get Lamar Jackson. There's still a threat to add a quarterback. We'll know by then. But the Bears are going to have lots of options to trade back and trade back again. Or they still could end up with Will Anderson, who is one of the most decorated college athletes, college defenders of all time. Or Jalen Carter, just a dominant force on the interior out of Georgia. Now, you'll notice both of those are defensive players. How does that help Justin Fields? How does drafting 2 defenders, or one of 2 defenders, help Justin Fields? What's about that? Doesn't matter. This team needs everything. The Chicago Bears need all sorts of impact players. They need help on the defensive line. They need help at linebacker. They need help at wide receiver, offensive line. The Chicago Bears just need help. And so they can go best player available. And the best players in this draft are Will Anderson, first and foremost, and second of all, Jalen Carter. And if they trade down far enough, yeah, they can take offensive line help. The nice thing with the Chicago Bears is they have money to spend this offseason. The Chicago Bears have over $90 million in cap space. $90.905 million for the Chicago Bears. That is number 1 out of all teams in the NFL. And they also have the 101. They have the 56th overall pick in the second round because, it's unfortunate. It really is. The Bears should have the 32nd overall pick. The Bears should have technically 2 first rounders because the Dolphins were stripped of their first rounder. And so the Steelers should be left let's start that over. The Bears should be picking at 32. The Bears should have the 32nd overall pick because the Miami Dolphins were stripped of their pick. The Bears should have 2 first-round picks, but instead, they gave it up to the Pittsburgh Steelers for Chase Claypool. It's ridiculous. It has me so confused, so mind-blown, so flabbergasted that the Steelers have an extra first-round pick thanks to Ryan Pace's bad decision-making. Chase Claypool is not a first-rounder on the last year of his contract. You now get to have the right to pay Chase Claypool because he was a second-round pick, so you don't even get the bonus of the 5th-year option. This was just a bad trade. But still, thanks to the Roquan Smith trade, they still have a second-round pick. They've got a 3rd, a 4th, 2 4th-round picks, actually. They have an extra 4th round from the Eagles for the trade of Robert Quinn. They have a 5th-rounder and a 5th-rounder from the Ravens as well from this trade. But how do they build with the money they have and and the draft capital that they have? Because free agency, I don't know if you've looked at it. It is rough out there. They're losing David Montgomery, and there's lots of running backs to replace him. There's the top tier of Saquon and Tony Pollard and Josh Jacobs. There's tier 2 with David Montgomery. He could still return. Miles Sanders. There's tier 3 with Rashad Penny and Devin Singletary, Damian Harris, Alexander Madison, Dearness Johnson. There's a bunch of veterans out there like Kareem Hunt, Jamal Williams. There are so many running backs that could join Khalil Herbert in this backfield. I don't know who they'll go with. I don't know if Khalil Herbert will be RB1 or if it'll be a committee or what they'll do because there are just so many running backs available. You cannot predict the future of any backfield in the NFL right now with players that are free agents. So I'm not even going to try that. But at wide receiver, what can the Bears do at wide receiver with all the money they have? Are they going to pay Jacoby Myers to be their slot receiver? Juju Smith-Schuster? Are they going to pay DJ Chark to play stretch X for them and kick Chase Claypool inside to the slot? Because those are the top tier. And then there's the next tier of like Paris Campbell and Darius Slayton and Mack Hollins. They could do the right thing and give Ashton Dulin a solid contract. I'd actually like that decision. But these are the free agents that the Bears will have to pick from. These are the options at wide receiver that the Bears can build around Justin Fields for. So when you look at that, you say, well, And maybe that's why they gave up a first round pick essentially for Chase Claypool. Or they could have just drafted a better wide receiver at that pick anyways. What if Quentin Johnson falls? Probably not, but what if Kayshon Boutte falls? I'd rather have Kayshon Boutte for his whole contract than Chase Claypool. Just so much wrong with this trade. And on the offensive line, there are some options. There are some candidates that the Bears could overpay, like Orlando Brown, if Kansas City does not opt to re-sign their left tackle. Right tackle, there's actually a fair amount of characters. Falcons right tackle, Caleb McGarry, who started to put it together. Jaguars right tackle, Jawan Taylor. 49ers right tackle, Mike McGlinchey. So there's options. And then there's a quick drop off after that. And we don't know how many of those players will return to their original team. Because after that, you get either the projects like Trey Pipkins, who couldn't stay healthy as the Chargers right tackle and was just kind of so-so, or you get the veterans like George Fant, who spent a lot of the time injured, but they're an upgrade. Same with Isaiah Wynn for the Patriots, who flipped from left tackle to right tackle, didn't really fit with the way the Patriots were going. But these are the guys that the Bears can pay. And this is the problem with having so much money, is this is a bad free agent class. There are not a lot of people worth paying that money to. Even on the interior, they could go for Roger Saffold. That would be a home run. If the Bears want to go and overpay Roger Saffold, free agent for the Bills, go ahead and do that. But outside of that, there are a lot of questionable characters. At center, it's a little bit better. You get Bradley Bozeman from the Carolina Panthers, Connor McGovern from the Jets, but it's going to be hard to fix the Bears. It really is. It's going to be hard to build around Justin Fields. And don't just take my word for it. Look at what the Bears have. I have created this for you to see what they have heading into this season. We've got the free agents. Justin Fields, he's being backed up by Nathan Peterman and Tim Boyle. No more. So the Bears need a new backup to Justin Fields. Plenty of options there. Plenty of quarterbacks available. They need to figure out if they'll bring back Kari Blasingame to be the fullback or if they're changing their offense. At running back, as we said, it's Khalil Herbert and then Treston Ebner. David Montgomery, free agent. Darrington Evans, who beat out Ebner. He also free agent. And look at these wide receivers. The Bears heading into this offseason, and I know it's obvious they had the worst receivers possible, but they just look again how bad it is. They've got Chase Claypool at X, or they can kick him into the slot. It's either, this is the problem with the Bears, is you get Darnell Mooney back, that's great, but your options are Equanimous St. Brown at X, which kicks Chase Claypool into the slot, or you get Velus Jones in the slot, which keeps Chase Claypool at X. And this is, again, the problem with the Chicago Bears trading for a positionless receiver like Chase Claypool. Just a catastrophe. It really was a catastrophe. And so what do you do? Do you pay DJ Chark to move Chase Claypool to the slot? I love Justin Fields, but I'm worried about how they're going to build around him. And Cole Kmet, he's fine at tight end. He's all right, but he's just all right. And the offensive line, Braxton Jones is not the problem. So I've seen a lot of Bears fans, well, you got to take left tackle at 2. No, you don't. The value's not there to take left tackle at 2. And I know the Podfather talks all the time about how you need a left tackle. I am more of the opinion that you just need a stalwart tackle. It doesn't matter if it's the left side, the right side. We've seen Lane Johnson for the Philadelphia Eagles. Doesn't matter that he's the stalwart and eventually Jordan Mailata emerges. Doesn't matter. As long as you have one franchise left tackle. Braxton Jones, if he is the weak link on your offensive line, you're doing pretty good. The problem is he's the strength. Braxton Jones and Cody Whitehair on that left side of the offensive line, that is the strength. Lucas Patrick barely played center this year. He was pretty much replaced by Sam Mustipher because Patrick broke his hand in the opener for the Chicago Bears and pretty much had to move to guard for the season. So I know the Bears will return him to his natural position, but he was not good this year. He was not particularly great with the Bears or with the Packers before this either. Right guard Tevin Jenkins seems to have found a home. He actually ended up being solid. They just installed him too late. So Then there's the right tackle, Larry Borum. He was benched for Riley Reif, and then they kind of became co-starters. Alex Leatherwood, who you may remember as the Raiders' first-round pick, he has been awful, so he was benched and got one start. Bears did the smart thing, started him for a game to see what they have, and turns out they have nothing. So new right tackle, or you can get a left tackle, kick Braxton Jones to right tackle. I don't care, whatever works best. But you need a tackle. You need an upgrade on the interior over Lucas Patrick, probably. I would be fine if you bring back Cody Whitehair and Tevin Jenkins, but Lucas Patrick, Larry Borum, you need a new center, you need a new right tackle, and you can upgrade on the left tackle and both guard positions too. You can do all of that. I just don't know how, given the free agent landscape. And then when we look at the defense of the Chicago Bears, it isn't that great either, and it's in a lot of trouble because that linebacker, they're going to be missing starter Nicholas Morrow. They're going to be missing part-time starter Joe Thomas, who filled in for injuries. Now Jack Sanborn started to emerge for the Bears, and maybe they do bring back Nicholas Morrow, but Sterling Weatherford and DeMarquis Gates are currently in play to start for the Bears at linebacker, so they got to do something there. The Bears are also losing two of their top rotational linemen, Armon Watts, who this was just ridiculous. The Vikings, they trade for Ross Blacklock. They give up too much draft capital to get Ross Blacklock. And then they cut Armon Watts, who goes to the Chicago Bears and starts right away. I imagine that he'll be back in Chicago. The Bears have to pay people. Armon Watts is worth paying. He and Angelo Blackson, though, both free agents after playing heavy role with the Bears on the defensive line. They return all three of their starters at edge rusher, which is actually pretty good. The Bears need a true home run threat at edge, but Travis Gibson, Al-Qadim Muhammad, who ended up coming over with the head coach from Indianapolis, he's a solid edge rusher. And Dominique Robinson from the University of Miami of Ohio, he really started to emerge at the end of the year. So I'd like a star at edge, but this is a solid rotation, and it could be instead maybe an upgrade at the interior. Will Anderson or Jalen Carter, either way, just the Bears D-line will be a threat no matter what. I'm excited to see what they do if they end up trading back to 2 or to 4. Bears D-line is going to be scary, but they got to figure out linebacker, and they've got to figure out their second cornerback, because Jalen Johnson, he's fine, he's set, but cornerback 3. Kindle Vildor was a starter for most of the year. He missed some games injured. Jalen Jones, seems like they found something with Jalen Jones in undrafted free agency. Was impressed by him, but he's an undrafted free agent. As you saw with the Detroit Lions, AJ Parker, the Detroit Lions had a undrafted slot corner start all their games last year, and he did not make the team this year. He was on the practice squad all year, picked up by someone else. So you got to be careful with these undrafted corners. There's a chance that Jalen Jones just reverts to his undrafted self. Bears need to figure out a CB3, because Kyler Gordon in the slot, he's really their CB2. Kyler Gordon had a pretty strong first year with the Chicago Bears. He and Jaquan Brisker seem like they're going to lock down the secondary for years to come. So the Bears could be on their way back to the monsters of the Midway. And I've heard chatter that Khalil Mack could end up being cut by the Los Angeles Chargers. If the Los Angeles Chargers, because they are kind of cash strapped right now, they got to free up some cap. If they do cut Khalil Mack, could he return to the Bears defense, play alongside the player that replaced him with that second round pick that they got from the Chicago Bears, which was, of course, Jaquan Brisker. So you get that second round pick, you return Khalil Mack, and you have a now dominant edge rush group. Then you can draft Jalen Carter, and you're set on the defensive line. Or you could pair Khalil Mack with Will Anderson. The Bears front four is going to be scary. They need to figure out linebacker. They're working on their secondary. Their secondary is much improved from previous years. Just got to figure out one more cornerback. And the defense will be at the level that Matt Eberflus wants it to be. It's just the offense that is going to leave Justin Fields scrambling for his life too often. It'll be interesting to see which receiver they overpay, whether it's DJ Chark, whether it's Jacoby Myers. The Chicago Bears are going to throw a boatload of money at someone and get it's going to be a Christian Kirk type contract, but if it's Jacoby Myers, he'll earn that money. DJ Chark will earn it if he stays healthy. So I don't know who the Bears will bring in alongside Chase Claypool and Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet and Khalil Herbert. That's the Chicago Bears. That's what we're in for with the Chicago Bears. I hope you're ready. I hope you're prepared. But if you're a Justin Fields fan, don't worry. He is still fantastic. He will rise above. I just hope he gets a little bit of help from Ryan Pace. Please, Ryan Pace, just a little bit of help for Justin Fields.